Hello there, my name is Aleyda Solis. I am an international SEO consultant and I am going to talk today about international SEO. As an international SEO consultant, one of the main questions that I am asked is, in the first place, how do I know that I really have an international SEO potential? Does it really compensate for me to enable a new language or country version for my site? How do you do? Well, the reality is that international SEO should be part of your overall SEO process at the end of the day. And remember, one of the first steps that you do when you start an SEO analysis is to do a keyword research. So the same you need to do with your international SEO potential. I have specific steps to do this, and I have created this international SEO checklist that I have shared at some point in the past at the Moz blog. You have here at the screen. You can take a look at the international SEO checklist and where you can find it, and you can see how do I start with this very first question. Do I have international SEO potential? And as you can see, it is about to identify if there are enough requests, searches, queries regarding your topic, your business model, your products, your services, your content in other languages, let's say in Spanish or in German, or in specific countries that you want to assess the possibility to target, like Mexico or Peru or Spain or, I don't know, South Africa maybe. Also, remember that you can language and country target. This is another of the main question that I'm asked. People always ask, like, should I really target Spanish, Latin American Spanish? Does that really exist, or Spanish in general? Or should I target Mexico as a specific country, or how do I target to Spain? Well, there are best practices to do that, actually. And I would like to share with you some slides. The most important aspect when you decide on enabling international SEO versions, whether country or language targeted, is to enable for each one of them a specific URL structure. So for country targeting, you have three options: to enable ccTLDs, country extensions for each one of them, specific sites for each one of them, or to enable subdirectories in your already existing generic domain. That is another option. Then you will need to geolocate every subdirectory that you enable, or to enable subdomains for each one of your country versions. And each one of these, you can see, have pros and cons at the end of the day. The best ideal scenario to geo-target are ccTLDs, because they are automatically geo-target to their own specific country. So you don't need to do anything additional to geo-target them. And they are automatically targeted to their country. So that is definitely a good signal. On one hand, unfortunately, ccTLDs have also a con in this case, and the con is that since they are independent structures, they are independent entities, you will need to manage them as if they were independent sites most of the times, and you will certainly need to build specific links for each one of them, and it will be harder at the beginning to inherit the link popularity that you may have already established or built with your original domain. So that might take a little bit longer than usual for you to start ranking with a fresh, completely new domain. So this is something that you really want to verify that you can do. The other alternatives is to enable subdirectories, and the pro of the subdirectory is funny because it's the con of ccTLDs. The subdirectories inherit the popularity of the root domain where they are located. So really, if you already have a well-established version targeted, let's say, to the US or to the UK or to those main markets where you are already targeting, it will be far easier for you to enable /ES or /FR or /DE for Germany for each specific country that you are targeting. So you know that these subdirectories will inherit the popularity of the main domain. However, you will need to geolocate these specific subdirectories with the option that is provided by the Google Search Console, for example, or Google Yandex if you are targeting to Russia. in the situation that you are targeting to Russia, for example, or in general by search engines, webmaster tools. They always have these options to target to the right country, right? So that is the con in this case. You will need to do a little bit of extra work to geo-target, but you will be able to inherit, on the other hand, the popularity of the main domain. Subdomains, they are in between. They don't automatically inherit, as the subdirectories do, the popularity of the main domain. They are seen as this somewhat independent structure. So you will need to interlink. Yes, you can do other things, of course, to grow the popularity easily, much more easily than with ccTLDs. However, it's not the same at all. On the other hand, subdomains are not automatically geolocated, so they don't have also the other pro that ccTLDs have. They don't have the other benefits. So in this case, you won't have none of both its benefit. The only situation really when I think it is viable to enable subdomains is when you really want to start generating and publishing and indexing a lot of content. So maybe subdirectories are not the best way to handle those, and you will have like a deeper URL structure, and then you decide to go this way. But as you can see, there are always pros and cons, and you need to assess each situation. You can see in this case how there are, for example, websites like TripAdvisor have like literally dozens of international versions, all of them being targeted with ccTLDs. And this is something very, very important that you can see to the left of the screen. There are certain ccTLDs that are not treated by Google as if they are geolocated ccTLDs. Like, for example, .co, that is the extension of Colombia, but since this extension is also very well used in general by companies as their generic domains, then Google don't automatically geolocalize them. So you will need to take the extra step to geolocalize them, as I am showing right now in the screen with the Google Search Console or Webmaster Tool. So that's a little extra step, but you know that it is viable to do it though. On the other hand, we have language targeting. Sometimes, and it's true, the ideal way to target international audience is to do it very granularly. You really want to connect with this audience. You don't want that this audience see you as someone as a foreigner, someone who are trying to sell them something but who doesn't really understand or is outside their own community or country. It's not good. You are alien for them. That is definitely not good. Although there are certain businesses and operations that certainly benefit more of being geolocalized. For example, e-commerce. They may have specific currencies to target each country, or delivery options and restrictions, or they might have some specific products that they really want to push for some specific audiences. However, they might be like, for example, blogs. In general, blogs, speaking about technology or about generic events or travel blogs, and you don't really need to create specific countries for specific audiences out there. You have your blog in English or in Spanish or in German, and you want to reach all Spanish speakers worldwide or English speakers worldwide, and that's how it is. It's not as important, right? Or you have a SaaS business and you provide the same functionalities that are web-based to everybody speaking the same language at the end of the day. So for this type of websites, geo-targeting is really not that as important for their business model and operation. So you can start by language targeting. If at some point when you do this first assessment that I talked about before, you identify that you don't have enough searches, enough queries or potential to grow your organic search visibility and conversions from a specific country, and then you want to target really the language, then it is viable to do it so if it is not as important for the operation. And then you will have two options for this, the subdirectories and the subdomains, without the ccTLDs in this case, because you won't be targeting specific countries, but languages. And these have the exact same pros and cons that I shared before. with country targeting. And then at the end of the day, it is more about, yes, how much content. If I have a news website, for example, how much content do I want to index? Is it really important for me to enable them as a subdirectory because I really want to inherit the popularity of the main domain, or as a subdomain if I really want to index much more information? And we can see two examples here. Engadget on one hand, they have a subdomain because really Engadget is one of the sites that are already an authority, a high authority target. They have all the brand in the world, so they don't have necessarily authority issues. So, and on the other hand, they really want to index a lot of content, so they have a subdomain for their Spanish version on one hand. And we have Skype on the other. Skype is a software. They won't index as much content, really. They have only their landing pages, doing marketing for its software, and that's it. It's not as much. So they enable subdirectories. In this case, it's much more straightforward. So as you can see, there are different solutions for different situations. The most important aspect, I will say, is that we need to have clear that we need specific structures for each language or each country, whether subdirectories, subdomains, CCTLs, etc. Each one of them needs their own structures. It's not good to show them with parameters or mixing versions in only one structure. It's much more difficult to geolocalize or language target to. It's much more difficult. If you see that even following these best practices, you see that, for example, your UK version is attracting a lot of visits and conversion from the US, or your Mexican version is attracting also a lot from Argentina, there is this little tag option configuration that are called Hreflang annotations that is supported by Google and by Yandex too. And you can see how with these tags you specify the language and alternatively the country of each one of your pages. And you also refer to their sister pages, targeting to other languages and other versions. So Google understands the relationship between them, and it's far easier for Google to display and show and rank the appropriate version of your content in the right country, in the right language too. So this is very important to do it always, just to be completely safe, even if you haven't seen that you have really this issue. But if you grow with many languages, or more importantly, with many countries featuring the same language, this ends up happening from time to time. So there are always issues. I have written in the past in Search Engine Land the typical scenarios that I have found with problems with Hreflang annotations. Non-existent values, there is a standard for this that is shared in the Hreflang specification that I shown before. Irrelevant Hreflang values, irrelevant URL, so it is very easy to mess this up. So I have created this little tool to generate the tags for your websites that you can change afterwards. The URLs, of course, this is the value that is changing all the time for each one of your pages. But you can use it as a reference and to make it far easier for you to understand how the standard work between your pages. And you can include them directly in the head area of the HTML or the HTTP status head of your pages, or also XML sitemaps, although I really prefer to do it in the HTML directly, because at the end of the day, that is much more easier to validate at some point if they are correctly implemented on one hand, and you make sure that they are always being seen and taken into consideration much more easily by Google than with sitemaps that sometimes you don't know if they are all really identified or taken into consideration, etc., etc. So for me, it's much more easier in this way. As I said before, these are only like the main issues, the main aspect, but there is literally much more. You can take a look at the checklist that I created with the best practices. You will see that besides the geo-targeting and also making sure that you align your web versions with the right audience, one of the other issues and main issues that are clarified there is the way that you really optimize your overall structure, each of your language or country structure, to the right audience. And the basic thing to do is to make sure that you have everything translated, everything localized as much as possible, from URLs to titles to content to audio descriptions to everything need to be targeted towards the right language. And even if you are speaking the same language and it is another audience in another country speaking the same language, there are different ways to say things. Like, for example, in English, like flat rental or rent a flat in London versus rent an apartment in New York. This is a different way to say things. The same in Spanish, it happens a lot. So it's very, very important that you have a native support to understand these differences, and beyond the terms, beyond the content, is about understanding the cultural factors that affect everything, even look and feel, even design principles. We can see how for example, the Rakuten version in Japan is completely different than the one, from a design perspective, than the one that is shown and featured in the Spanish version for Spain. So really, you really want to try and to connect with the right audience, and this doesn't pass by translating and localizing the content, but the overall presence, your web presence, to connect as much as possible and be seen as a local who can build trust much more easily and convert in a much better way, and not only rank, but really convert and connect with your audiences. Thank you very much. I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and if you liked it, there's much more to see in Platzi.com.
No olvides darle like a este video si te gustó, incluso si no te gustó. Y tenemos muchos más videos. Mira, tenemos más para ti en este canal. ¿Quieres saber más de esto? No solamente está este. Suscríbete a nuestro canal. ¿Quieres ser la primera persona en enterarte cuando Platzi publique un nuevo contenido? Suscríbete ya mismo. Aprende programación, marketing, diseño, negocios online y a crear el futuro de Internet.